Tonight on Spotlight, Evil by the Beach. The two teenagers who vanished without a trace.
And no crime scene, there's no forensics to be involved. It's a real puzzle.
Now, new witnesses.
I remember platform shoes and a miniskirt.
And shocking new clues.
Someone's dug something.
There is definitely like a clear disturbance that's unnatural.
Closing in on the truth in one of Australia's biggest mysteries.
I've never seen them since.
There would have been a plan, yes.
You cannot eliminate him as a suspect.
Put it bluntly, I'd crawl on broken glass to see this solved.
What happened to them?
We need to know.
Good evening, I'm Michael Usher and welcome to Spotlight. It is one of Australia's most enduring mysteries, the disappearance of cousins Raelene Eaton and Yvonne Waters in April 1974. The two teenagers were last seen at a popular Perth hotel in the company of three men. Over the decades, there have been several dark theories about their fate. Tonight in this special investigation by the West Australian, extraordinary revelations in the mystery of the vanishing cousins.
I think most detectives would carry through into their retirement one or two unsolved cases. And this fits the bill. It's a real puzzle. Put it bluntly, I'd crawl on broken glass to see this solved, no matter who solves it.
The world that the cousins were in, that I was in, was very puberty blues.
It was just a bit of a wild time. And if we could get away with stuff, we did. What do you want to know? We wanted to be grown up. So of course we all smoked. We all drank a bit. It was about cars. It was certainly about boys. It was about finding out who you are and being with your mates.
We used to call panel vans trucks or shag and wagons. Oh, there were so many things we used to say. Rack off, you mole. Oh, unreal. Everything was unreal. In the world of beaches, beach culture, you were expected to get their cigarettes, to keep this space on the beach by sitting on their towel, get their lunch, the Chico roll, and you were meant to obey orders and to look decorative and be kind of domestically useful. And there was a kind of dark underbelly to what looks like the beach, sunny, blue skies, beautiful ocean. But it wasn't like that a lot of the time. It was a place where men ogled, groped, and worse, young girls, unless you were very vigilant or very lucky.
My name is Ken Gregson. I'm a retired police officer. I was an acting superintendent at the time of my retirement. In 1986-87, I was a detective sergeant in the Major Crime Squad. That's the time I was given a watch-in brief. My responsibilities with regards to the case were to keep a watch on it, familiarise myself with it, and take any action that was necessary or I considered necessary. My first impressions of the case with these girls going missing, there was just no obvious answer as to where they were or what happened to them. They were there 1 minute, and the next minute they were gone. They simply vanished. Raelene Eaton lived with her parents, Trevor and Jean, in Irvine Street, Bayswater. By all accounts, she was a normal sort of 16-year-old, mad keen on dancing, going to the hotels, listening to the rock bands.
Raelene used to like the type of bands, pretty heavy music, you know, back in the 70s, Deep Purple, Black Sabbath.
We all liked Fatty Lumpkin. They were a popular Perth band. People liked to dance to the rock music or get up and watch the bands up close, watch how they played the guitars, the drums. It was just really exciting.
Oh, well, Ray was the consummate extrovert. She was just enough crazy. She was a lot of fun. She had a wicked sense of humour. Very much the life of the party, very much.
And she did have plans. She had plans for her life. Raelene wanted to head to Canada and she was saving for that. She was working towards her licence. All the things that mark stages in a person's life, she was keen to do them straight away.
Yvonne Waters was Raelene's cousin. She was 17, lived in Maylands, not too far away from Raelene. She had a steady boyfriend. At the time that these girls went missing, he was away in the bush, I understand, working. So she was able to hook up with Raelene and go see the rock bands.
Yvonne was a good girl. She was like me. She didn't like to cause trouble or anything like that. She just would do the right thing. If an adult wanted something done, she wouldn't question it. She wanted to follow the rules. She was just a nice girl.
Yvonne was my bridesmaid at my wedding to Stan in January 1974. And went missing 3 months later on the 7th of April 1974. She loved going out with Bob and being with Bob, her boyfriend. Really lovely guy. They were madly in love. Been going together for 2 years. Yvonne had accumulated things for her glory box in anticipation of marrying Bob. The future for them would have been that they would have got engaged and married.
On the 7th of April 1974, somehow the girls had a discussion. They decided they'd go and see some rock band that they were interested in. It was in the early afternoon. That particular Sunday, Raelene, I understand, went to Yvonne's house. From there, they took a train into the city, I believe, and subsequently took a bus out to Scarborough. But it's possible they hitchhiked. I understand they did do some hitchhiking.
If you think about the times, we didn't catch Uber. There was no Uber. There was no mobile phones. The bus schedules were really poor. Taxis we couldn't afford. Hitchhiking was, if you wanted to get from A to B, it was quite normal.
There was a safety in numbers, and that's what we relied on. People didn't carry weapons. You didn't find people being one-punch attacked, that kind of thing. So I guess the times were more innocent in lots of ways, and yet not in others, because we were probably a bit stupid and naive, really.
The next thing we know is that the girls were at the White Sands Hotel in Scarborough from around 4:30 till 6:30 roughly. They were seen, according to witnesses, with 3 men, described as scruffy in their early 20s, that sort of age group. But nobody knew who these men actually were.
And definitely not locals. I'd never seen them before, and I've never seen them since. I lived at Hastings Street, Scarborough, and I worked at the BP service station, and I knew a lot of the locals. They were just out of character for the venue. That was the thing that struck me, is that they were a lot older. Their appearance, their hair, they were fisherman type, just scruffy. They were just sitting there talking. And then I saw one of the guys that they were with looked very much like someone I thought I knew. So I was going over to say hello. And then I got closer and the guy had a high-pitched voice, different. And it wasn't the guy that I knew. But the hairstyle and that was the same. This photo here is an exact likeness of the guy that I thought was one of my mates. It is a spitting image of one of the three guys. I picture it now like I was here yesterday.
The last sighting of the girls was by the doorman. He looked away for a while, and when he looked back, they'd gone. That was the last that they were seen.
We were clearing the tables and picking up glasses, and I looked out the foyer, which the glass doors where everyone goes out, and the three guys and the two girls were standing there talking. They were the last ones there.
What does that say to you?
Oh, that they were arranging something. You'd think they must have known them, whether they'd met them in Scarborough or, down the beach or whatever. And Raelene came back in and said, "See you at Easter," which was the next week or something. And she was as happy as can be. Then I looked back a couple of minutes later and they were gone.
We obviously in this case had no crime scene. There's no forensics to be involved, so we've got no idea if they hopped into a car. If they walked off, we've got no idea what happened. It was a dead end to all intents and purposes. Who knows who else might have been there. It could well have been other people there that were undesirable. We've got nothing to sort of say one way or the other.
Up next,
detectives from the Major Crime Squad were led to the gravesite.
could the cousins have fallen victim to one of Australia's most notorious serial killers?
He said the first one he killed with a rock. The second one was done with a knife.
The killer's responsible for one of the country's most horrific crimes.
We need to know. They matter to people.
Good evening, I'm Brian Marshall, and this is Australia's Most Wanted. The smallest detail is sometimes all it takes for a breakthrough in criminal cases which may have puzzled police for years. Perhaps someone who knows the identity of the three men who were last seen with Raelene and Yvonne feels that they can come forward now to give police any information they may have. They are waiting for your call.
And if Raelene and Yvonne, if you are out there, please contact us. We'd just love to hear from you. You're welcome home with open arms, both of you.
I would love closure on this case. I was hoping and praying that it would come from Mum and Auntie Jane, but it didn't. It didn't.
We need to know the last chapter of this book, out of respect for these two young girls. They matter to people and they need the last chapter of their book written. We need to know.
My name is Peter Shanahan. I'm a Detective Senior Constable with the West Australian Police Service. I was the investigating officer for Operation Trace, which was the review into the disappearance of Raelene Eaton and Yvonne Waters. We look at all past investigative actions. We try and apply modern technologies or modern methodologies to those actions, but certainly revisiting witnesses, clarifying information, just making sure that everything can be done has been done. What I tried to resolve initially is that, why did the girls actually go to the White Sands Tavern? What was the reasoning? That may well hold the key as to what happened to them. Terry Sherman was mentioned in the original case file as a person who was spoken to. Terry did live in a flat on Watley Crescent in Maylands. Well, my understanding is that Terry asked Yvonne if she wanted to go out that afternoon, but it's also my understanding Raelene was getting prepared to go out with Yvonne.
It wasn't two girls that left the apartment that day.
No, there were three girls went out. There was Terry, there was Yvonne, and there was Raelene. As part of a review, so I wanted to revisit Terry, and I also wanted to explore a little bit more as to the dynamics behind what actually had occurred. Why the girls went to the White Sands Tavern and who to meet and what their purpose was and what their intentions were after that. The information from the parents is that they were told by the girls they were going to go to the Leaderville Hotel. They weren't aware that they were going to attend the White Sands Tavern. So Terry stayed at the Leaderville Hotel. Yvonne and Raelene went to the White Sands. There was a suggestion that they went to the White Sands Tavern to meet a boy by the name of John. This is the information Terry gave. We need to explore that. John who? What did John do? There's a lot of questions with respect to Terry Sherman. So we put a lot of time and effort into trying to find Terry. It was vitally important that we find her and we speak to her in order to progress the inquiry, but unfortunately she was shot in 1977. Terry went by a number of different names for various reasons. She proved difficult. Terry Sherman was a bit of a wild child. She didn't have a good relationship with her father, and not long after the girls went missing, she took off to Sydney. There was 3 people murdered in one day by the one person, and she was one of them. And indeed, it was Burwood in Sydney. I think it was September 1977. She was shot. So that, unfortunately, was the as far as we could take that line of inquiry. And when we couldn't speak with her, it was a setback. One of our techniques is to look at other persons that, known killers, or suspected killers that could have been active in Perth at that particular time.
The remains were found in scrub country a few metres from a bush track.
Well, the first person we investigated was Christopher Worrell, who's infamous for the Truro murders in South Australia.
The following day, the police department mounted what was to become the most intensive search operation ever seen in this state.
Christopher Worrell, with an accomplice, James Miller, he operated in Adelaide as a serial killer between December 1976 and 1977. And in 7 short weeks, they murdered 7 people. As many people as Ivan Milat. Ivan Milat took about 2 years. Christopher Worrell took 7 weeks.
Detectives from the Major Crime Squad were led to the grave site by the defendant James William Miller.
When Worrell first met Miller in jail, he told him that he'd abducted 2 women from Western Australia, 2 hitchhikers, and murdered them. He said the first one he killed with a rock or a metal bar. The second one was done with a knife, which was extremely messy.
What we know is Christopher Worrell was with the Air Force. He was stationed out at Pearce Air Base. He was discharged late 73. The notes on the file was that he was not suitable for life in the service. We do know that he had family in Armidale. Family do recall him being in Perth in 1974. But what we don't know is, was he in Perth after he was discharged the early part of 1974, or did he travel back between late February and the 14th of April? We don't know that.
At the time the cousins went missing, Worrell was a known abductor and very soon after a known rapist. And And those women that he abducted were almost identical age to the two cousins. So Chris Worrell, he was a young 20-year-old in 1974, extremely personable, who easily blended into the scene at the time, good looking, good in conversation. If they were looking for a lift home, he could have easily just parked nearby and talked them into getting into a car.
He's still very much a suspect. Again, we can't eliminate him. We just can't take those inquiries any further. But of course, unfortunately, Chris Worrell died in 1977 in a car accident.
He was recklessly driving a car under the influence and with bald tyres. He rolled the car, he was thrown out of it, and he died instantly. Due to the accident, the murder stopped and Worrell took all the secrets to his grave. Did he murder any more people? We just don't know.
Noosa schoolgirl Sian Kingi was riding her yellow bike home after seeing her mum at the shops. Then evil struck. Barry John Watts and wife Val May Beck, the killers responsible for one of the country's most horrific crimes.
There were other names that were mentioned, people from Perth that have killed. The other one was Barry Watts, who was convicted in 1987 of the murder of Sian Kingi in Queensland up on the Sunshine Coast.
It was the 27th of November 1987. Watts and Beck abducted, raped and murdered the 12-year-old. Watts grabbed her in a park after Beck asked the schoolgirl to help search for their missing dog. Sian was bound, gagged and driven to Mount Tinbirwa Forest and tortured.
We received information about Barry Watts, and that's that he had killed 2 girls previously to going to Queensland whilst he was actually in Perth. So he was investigated and timelined, and Barry was a recidivist offender. He was always in trouble. So Barry was either committing an offence, on bail, in jail or on parole. So we were able to establish a very tight timeline with Barry. Now, if that is the truth and he did kill 2 girls, well, it had to be Raelene and Yvonne, because they were the only 2 girls, unsolved murders, whilst he was a free man prior to him going to Queensland, if you believe the information that we'd received. We explored that as much as we could. We actually went to the source of the information, and let's just say less than credible. We didn't come away with a good feeling at all. But again, you never know, you can't eliminate him, but again, we can't take that line of inquiry, unfortunately, any further.
They were seen talking to the 3 men in the White Sands Hotel car park. It's not known whether the girls left with the men, although it seems likely they did.
The files that I researched showed that there was a report of a white panel van, Queensland registration number, there at the time. And it was assumed that maybe the girls went in this particular vehicle. So it was about 2 years later that it was actually determined that the vehicle was false. I think the only reason the details on this particular vehicle could have perpetuated could be because the person that reported it refused to ever say it was wrong. It's not unusual for that to happen. Some people do weird things for weird motivations.
Now, as part of the review, I tried to find the person, we'll call him Robert. He worked as a tyre fitter out at Morley. He told the police the following, that he was at the White Sands Tavern that night. He knows the 3 guys. Their names are John, Tom and Roger. He went to school with them when he was 12 years of age at the Wynnum State Primary School, and they have a white panel van with the prefix PXJ. Now, nothing checked out. When he was spoken to the second time, he never retracted that information. Okay, he stuck by that story. But there's a notation on the file, and I quote, for reasons only known to himself, he decided to mislead police. Now, they then conducted inquiries into Robert, and they found that Robert had a history of deceptive conduct. Let's just leave it at that. But we still don't know, though, saying that the information was incorrect. In whole, was it incorrect, or in part? Was he mistaken? Like, we're looking for a Queensland registration number. Was it a South Australian registration number? Was John and Tom, was that their middle name? So Unfortunately, you can't discount that information totally. There's unexpected turns and unexpected results.
In my reviewing of the case, I eventually became interested in a particular male person who was, if not a boyfriend, he was someone who was very keen on Raelene Eaton. I don't know that she was as keen on him.
We've had a good look at everything concerning this particular person, and we cannot eliminate him as a suspect. He remains a suspect to this day.
She had strong suspicions, and she never gave those up, ever. And Mum Eaton knew exactly where she was going. She knew where he lived, and she headed straight there. The day after the girls disappeared, she was told by the woman who ran the boarding house where this guy lived that he'd got home really late and had been washing his clothes at about 3 o'clock in the morning.
What do you make of that?
There are many things to make of that, but I think it's highly suspicious.
After the break,
he was someone who was very keen on Raelene Eaton.
We tracked down Raylene's mystery boyfriend.
She looked like she was alone. I was alone. I offered her a lift home, and I took her home.
What do you make of that?
Back in 1974, a young man who knew Raelene Eaton liked to think of himself as her boyfriend. To this day, he remains a suspect in her disappearance, as well as that of her cousin, Yvonne Waters. As our investigation continues, the team from the West Australian tracks him down.
Raelene did tell me his name when we had the conversation, so that name stuck in my mind. I didn't feel worried about her at the time because it was just in passing, but after she went missing, it became perhaps more significant to me, yes.
That I was implicated disgusts me. My scope is to give life, not give death. I only know about my appearance, not someone else's disappearance.
Mum had said that Yvonne was going to be home by 7 o'clock, and of course she became very, very concerned when she wasn't home by 8 o'clock.
I remember Mum Eaton telling me that Mrs. Waters phoned her shortly after the time that Yvonne was due home, and she actually said to Mum Eaton, "Something's happened to the girls."
It was so out of character for the girls not to come home. And with each hour that went past, one can only imagine their worry. Oh, horrible.
By midnight, they were getting very worried. They would have been a mess in the morning. My understanding is that they went to the police station pretty much straight away and reported the girls as missing. They were told that they couldn't file a missing persons report for 2 days and that they'd probably taken off with some guys somewhere.
It seems hard to imagine that the police would say that they were just naughty girls who had run off with blokes. But that was the attitude of society and police back in those days. Sadly, we know it wasn't true.
The fact that these poor desperate mothers were told that their daughters, they've probably just shacked up with some guy, they'll be back when they're sick of it, is horrifying and heartbreaking, but not surprising. And it's part of that double standard where the girls were seen as not as good as they should be, not behaving the way they should. And really that led to far too many disappearances not being investigated quickly when the case was hot, if you like, the trail was hot.
The Truro abductions in 1977 were extremely similar to the disappearance of the cousins in 1974. The parents weren't taken seriously at all. Juliet Makita's mother approached the police and they dismissed her as a runaway, like all the other ones.
We tried to juggle the fact that we feared that she was dead with the hope that she was alive, even though that to run away was out of character. And it's very hard to accept that somebody has taken your child and just deliberately smashed their lives.
So 7 people disappeared in 7 weeks in Adelaide CBD, and no one picked that up as an obvious pattern. Back in 1977 and in 74, the police were way too slow in getting onto these cases. Way too slow. Which is why we're looking at them now, 50 years later.
It's well known that the most important part of any case is the day or two afterwards. 72 hours is regularly quoted as being the optimum time to find out one way or the other where it's going. But outside 3 days, you know that you're probably in for the long haul.
The missing persons file remained with the same investigator for approximately about 6 or 7 months. So my understanding is it was still treated as a missing persons file for that period of time. It was then transferred to the homicide squad.
There's certainly an argument that it should have been upgraded before that time, but 50 years on, it's hard to know what the situation was. If it's upgraded to a criminal investigation earlier, things may have been found which weren't found.
A totally different investigation today than what it was in 1974. So 1974, there's no CCTV inside the hotel or out of the hotel. Today there would be. Not only that, there'd be CCTV opportunities up and down Scarborough Beach Road. There's other electronic forms of surveillance. There's bank accounts, there's telephones, there's so many different things that we can actually do today that they couldn't do in 1974.
In any investigation, it's important not only to find the culprit, obviously, but also to eliminate anybody who is innocent. In my reviewing of the case, I eventually became interested in a particular male person who was, if not a boyfriend, he was someone who was very keen on Raelene Eaton. I don't know that she was as keen on him.
Mum Eaton, she knew him. He'd been to her house. She knew where he lived and she headed straight there. That was after she'd been to the police station.
Knocking on the door, a lady who actually is the owner of the house states that the male friend is that, well, he's still in bed, he got home late and he was up during the night using the washing machine.
What do you make of that?
Well, it requires further investigation.
She made a lot of reference to going to the house and not being able to wake up this person, being told that she couldn't wake them because they'd been up washing until 3 in the morning. She had strong suspicions and she never gave those up, ever.
He told me that he, on the day that the girls went missing, he had gone chasing up Raelene Eaton at her parents' house. He said from there, he went looking for them, Raelene and Yvonne, because he knew they were together. Couldn't find them, so he just left. That's all he would tell me. He didn't want to talk about it anymore. So I couldn't go any further with that.
I first heard about him at a party that Raelene had at her house with her brother Graham, about 6 months before Raelene disappeared. I mentioned to her just if she had any boyfriends or anyone of interest she was going out with, and she said, well, there's him, and she rolled her eyes. That was our little signal if there was guys we weren't interested in.
That we've had a good look at everything concerning this particular person, and we cannot eliminate him as a suspect. He remains a suspect to this day.
I first met Raelene Eaton at the Midland Hotel. She looked like she was alone. I was alone. I offered her a lift home, and I took her home. That's it. One time she invited me to Wedge Island. I drove her in my car, her parents went in the other car. Mr. Eaton and myself went fishing. I played cards, cribbage with them. They were hospitable. Raelene was just a presence. She wasn't anything else. Like if you were there and you don't talk. The day we went to Wedge Island was the only time we hugged. There was never anything beyond a hug that would solidify a relationship. On the Sunday they went missing, I drove with a friend to Irvine Street, Bayswater. Raelene was not home. Apparently she'd gone to the White Sands, her father said. I drove my friend to his address in Scarborough and dropped him off. I'm going to see Raelene, but I don't have any money. I was down to my last cent. So I went back to my lodging house. The moon was directly 90 degrees from my room. I went to sleep. That I am implicated disgusts me outright. My scope is to give life, and you've got to fill in the rest, not give death. You've got to fill it in for yourself. I only know about my appearance, not someone else's disappearance. Well, after being approached by the police, I was feeling quite down and distraught because my life has been service to humanity in different fields of endeavour, in different careers. You live in a state of trepidation if you become a suspect. I did sometimes think I'd never have a girlfriend again because she might disappear too. Someone you knew disappeared. It might happen again. It's a logical conclusion. Raelene was just an innocent person I knew. I had no indication she had enemies, never spoke of any enemies. We never had any altercations. I always thought it was a disappearance because my heart felt that there was an opportunity for them to reappear. I don't aspire to find out who killed them or made them disappear. If it comes up, then it comes up. But it would fill a hole in my life, yeah. It's just a big mystery.
Raelene had one sibling, and that was Graham. He was slightly older than Raelene, and he was residing in Hastings Street at that time.
I don't know who he was with. He was with someone. They were sort of doing the rounds of Scarborough trying to find them.
So Graham and Yvonne's boyfriend and another guy decided to comb the beaches, the North Beaches, to have a look the weekend after Raelene disappeared. And there was an accident. Yvonne's boyfriend was driving and the car became airborne and hit a house that was under construction at the time.
And the phone rang on the 17th, and it was the police. Mrs Eaton's first thought, well, it would be news about Raelene, but unfortunately it wasn't. It was news about Graham. That's when she was given the bad news about Graham's accident.
Because the middle seat belt in the panel van that Bob had was custom made for Yvonne, it wouldn't fit around Graham, and so Graham ended up underneath the dash, which closed around him.
Oh, the accident was just soul-destroying for everyone. It was just like adding more pain to everyone's lives. It was just horrendous. And poor Auntie Jean and Uncle Trev. Poor things.
The next 14 days they spent their time either by the phone at home, waiting for news of Raelene, and by the hospital bed trying to support Graham. There was a lot of media surrounding Graham's accident, hoping that Raelene would be alerted. The police monitored the calls at the hospital, hoping that it would be Raelene who was ringing for news of Graham. But unfortunately, Raelene never rang.
He suffered massive internal injuries, a broken spine. His internal organs pretty much shut down. They kept him alive probably as long as they could. So they lost their daughter, their son, and their niece inside of 3 weeks. It was horrendous.
We were in shock, and that's how we stayed and just worked, moved automatically, did what you had to do and tried to find Raelene, and yeah.
When she spoke about her own journey, it was always quite factual. I guess maybe that's what helped her in the army. She had that temperament. I never saw her cry. I never saw her lose control. She was tough, really tough.
Oh, there's a picture of Graham back in the day. I think it was not long after that when he moved into Hastings Street. I don't know, I can't understand why he was there. It was just such a creepy place. I did go to Graham's house on Hastings Street, and I was looking for Raelene at the time, and that would have been probably a few months before she disappeared. It just gave you that creepy, horrible feeling. I just wanted to get out of there.
Up next,
got motorbikes all on the front lawn.
the House of Secrets on Hastings Street.
So we moved fast, got her out.
You have to be at least 2 or 3 men you would think involved in it.
I just got out of there as soon as I could.
I thought, this is going to be interesting.
A sinister house just a few blocks away from where teenage cousins Raelene and Yvonne disappeared may be a key location in this mystery. We're about to hear from a new witness with compelling information about the house on Hastings Street.
I just can't believe that Graham was living there. It just seems strange. I was surprised that Raelene would have been hanging out at a place like that, to be honest. Something going on there that had something to do with it, for sure.
I think I saw them on that day. They were walking away from the beach towards Hastings Street, and I remember platform shoes and a miniskirt. The only aim to get dressed up and spend all that time and effort to look good was to meet somebody.
Do you think that's what they were doing that day?
Absolutely.
After combing Perth, both families conducted an intensive publicity campaign through the Australian press. Later, Mrs. Walters and Mrs. Eaton saved up every cent they had to travel together to the eastern states looking for their daughters.
So a girl who had gone to school with us contacted the police and told them that she had seen Raelene in a shop. and that she'd called Raelene's name and the girl had run from the shop and run down the street.
So they went around Australia, they caught the train, they were in the newspapers in capital cities. They went to a lot of effort and a lot of expense to try and find the girls.
The anguish that Raelene and Yvonne's mothers must have felt is unimaginable to me. I can understand completely handing out all those little photos of their daughters in the slender hope that somebody somewhere could tell them something. To not know is, I think, the worst fate of all.
Mum and Auntie Jean were always optimistic that they would be found, always. One can only imagine their despair at coming back empty-handed.
Quite honestly, this is seriously our last-ditch effort. It's 50 years ago. People are getting older. People forget. So, yeah, I guess we're just trying to carry on the legacy. Look how tiny she was. This was her levers. Oh my goodness.
This is bringing back memories.
Absolutely. Oh, it is bringing back memories.
Oh,
there's
that's my name. Oh, Ray had so many friends. Her shirt was covered. Not everyone's was covered.
Oh my goodness, I can't believe Mum Eaton's just kept this. That's amazing.
That's really cool. Oh, there's my name there.
I'm Sue.
Oh yeah, honestly. Good job. Oh my.
Oh, her passbook.
Oh, she's got some
Canadian dollars in there.
That was a lot of money to have in the bank for those days.
Particularly considering that we were all on about $20 a week.
Yeah.
She really saved really hard.
Yes. Yeah. And I saw her the week before she went missing, and all her talk was about planning for the future and travelling and things like that.
Oh, there's Diane.
So this was the pen pal that she used to write to.
Oh, a letter from Diane. P.S. Write soon.
Letter.
Very soon, and hurry up and come over.
Oh, that's sweet.
No,
Teddy. A vintage bear.
He's so sweet.
That's so cool.
So was this Graham's bear?
Must be his first bear, I'd say.
Cute? Wow.
So beautiful that she kept it all that time.
Yeah, so touched, you know, a mother's love that's kept things of her children.
Oh, there's a picture of Graham back in the day. I think it was not long after that when he moved into Hastings Street. I don't know, I can't understand why he was there. It was just such a creepy place. I did go to Graham's house on Hastings Street, and I was looking for Raelene at the time, and that would have been probably a few months before she disappeared. And I didn't like the feeling that I got in that house. And I remember walking in there, and it was a big hallway, just dark. So all the curtains were drawn. I felt like a bad atmosphere. The people were sort of rough-looking people, not surfy types. And I do remember seeing a lady in there in one of the rooms.
Have you seen Raelene?
She told me that Raelene wasn't there. So I just got out of there as soon as I could, to be honest. To this day, I can still feel that when I think about it. I think Raelene and Yvonne walking into Hastings Street, it was a dangerous scenario, especially for young girls at that age. What happened to Raelene and the Hastings Street house? Something going on there that had something to do with it for sure.
There were two old boarding type houses as they're being described to me. They don't exist today. 13 and 15 Hastings Street, Scarborough. It was just an endless procession of people living there, and Graham was one of those.
Somebody said he wanted to go surfing, and I found that really bizarre because he just never ever surfed in his life. He liked to wear black stuff all the time, and the shoes were boots, big boots. I don't know, that's not a surfer to me.
Now, we do know that they called into 13 Hastings Street, Scarborough, where Graham, the brother, actually was living at the time. Now, that was before the session started, so we believe that to be around about 4 o'clock because the session started at 4:30.
I think I saw them on that day. They were walking away from the beach towards Hastings Street, between West Coast Highway and Hastings Street. My first thought was, well, this is out of place for you to be here. You must be here for the session. And it was so far from their home that it just really surprised me that they were in that location. They had their heads down talking together and didn't notice me at all. They were relaxed, they weren't in a hurry. And I remember platform shoes and a miniskirt. It stuck in my head. It was more dressy than what we would have been wearing. If you were living in Scarborough, we were more sort of a beach type theme. The only aim to get dressed up and spend all that time and effort to look good was to meet somebody.
Do you think that's what they were doing that day?
Absolutely.
Did you see anyone around them at the time?
No, it was Sunday afternoon and there was no one on the street in that moment that we passed.
How certain are you that it was Raelene and Yvonne that day?
1000%. I know it was them.
The questions I'd like to know about would be who was hanging around at Hastings Street around the same time as Raelene disappeared? Why was Graham there? Who the scruffy guys were? I think that the girls could have met the guys at Hastings Street. I think that's definitely something that could be real.
It would have been 74. I went with some mates to a party at number 13 Hastings. It was a Saturday night and we pulled up and there were motorbikes all on the front lawn. I said to the girl who invited us, "What's going on here?" She said it's a bikie party for some member who just got out of jail for armed robbery. I thought, this is going to be interesting. Most of the party was out back and I distinctly remember seeing a shed there. One of the girls we were with started mucking about, teasing the bikies and chatting them up. So we moved fast, got her out. Bloody lucky escape.
There are a number of names on our system back in that time of people that did reside at that address. Unfortunately, being such an old system, it's not that reliable. A lot of the people, the names there, I don't know who they are. As I say, it was two boarding houses, people rotating through them all the time, staying for short periods of time and then moving on.
You can understand if one person commits a murder, they can stay silent about it. But when you get two and maybe more involved, it's possible that someone's likely to say something somewhere along the line. But in this case, that hasn't happened. There would have to have been at least 2 or 3 men you would think involved in it, if not others. Pretty unusual that they could keep a secret for so long, or that people that know these particular men weren't able to suspect something and report any unusual behaviour.
I did see Raelene on Sunday, the 7th of April 1974. Raelene mentioned that she was going to the White Sands with Yvonne, and they were meeting up with a couple of guys. I didn't think they were from Perth. I thought they were from out of town.
Yes, I did see 3 scruffy strangers. It all seemed to happen at the same time, relatively quickly. The girls disappeared, they did.
Up next,
someone's dug something.
Bombshell new evidence.
There is definitely like a clear disturbance that's unnatural.
Were Raelene and Yvonne driven to their deaths in this mystery car?
It just has always stuck in my head, seeing the number plate and seeing one of the girls in the back seat.
The fate of the vanishing cousins has defied investigators for over 50 years. But tonight, you're about to hear from a witness who's never spoken before and is almost certainly the last person to see the girls alive.
So here's Fatty Lumpkin, very scruffy looking band playing heavy rock music. And here's Orange, a very well-dressed, mild-mannered looking band playing top 40 music. For close to 50 years, it was thought that the band that played that night was Fatty Lumpkin. After looking through my archives, I discovered it wasn't.
And so this is the band that actually we've discovered played that day at the White Sands. It's a band called Orange.
Yep. What would you like me to say about that? I don't see that the band would have been the draw card.
If there was a name I thought was in my memory that Raelene mentioned, it might have been Gary or Gazza, but that's as far as I can go.
So there was a plan all along?
On her part, there would have been a plan, yes.
The pub was very much, just like the beach, just like just about everywhere, in fact, was very much a male space. And there were guys there who were like you, who were nice, naive young men, and they're the ones you would have wanted to hook up with. But there were also older guys and older men who saw young women as fair game, and that's where the predatory side of it came into it.
There was a male friend of Raelene's. He was at the White Sands Tavern that night, and he had a discussion with Raelene. And this male describes Raelene as a nice type of girl, and so he wondered as to why, Raelene would be associating with these 3 guys. A bad type. It was just a thought that ran through his head. And that's consistent with the school friend of Raelene's that saw them there, because she described them as labouring/fisherman types, and they were out of place. I wondered why Raelene and Yvonne especially would be talking to them, and there was a comment made, I think, by Raelene that, they're just a mob of dags.
It's a surprise to me that they would be with guys that were scruffy and were obviously of a bad element, if others had described them that way, yes.
My name's George Matskov. I'm an author, photographer and a music historian. Been gathering archives for the whole history of West Australian music from 1960 to 1999. The White Sands opened in 1972 as a $750,000 extension to the Hotel Motel. The venue would hold about 400 people, had a bar, stage and a dance floor. What we're looking at here is the weekend gig guide for Saturday, April 6th, 1974. On the Sunday, you can actually see over here that Fatty Lumpkin were actually playing at the Kewdale Hotel. So the band at the Sunday session at the White Sands Hotel was in fact Orange. A totally different looking band to Fatty Lumpkin, playing top 40 music. So this is new information for the first time in 50 years, and it's great to put a new light on it.
Oh my goodness. Wow. They don't really look like the bands that we would go and see. We liked, the heavy rock bands, and Fatty Lumpkin was one of those.
I did see Raelene on Sunday before she went to the White Sands Hotel. Raelene and I lived next door to each other in Irvine Street, Bayswater. I knew her from when I was 4 years old until she disappeared at 16. When I met Raelene in the street that morning on the 7th of April, we were just chatting, normal things teenagers do, and she did say that she was going to the White Sands Hotel with Yvonne, and they were meeting up with a couple of guys. My feeling now is that I didn't think they were from Perth. I thought they were from out of town, whether that's eastern states or country, but I thought they were from over east. If there was a name I thought was in my memory that Raelene mentioned, it might have been Gary or Gazza, but that's as far as I can go. I think maybe she must have met them before, because otherwise she wouldn't have said she's meeting them.
And did the police ever speak to you?
No, the police never spoke to me.
I did see three scruffy strangers. They were in the kitchen at Hastings Street. They were just standing there with a beer in their hands, quite loud, rough, obnoxious and cocky. One day we came home and the house was trashed. It would have been within a day or so of Raelene and Yvonne going missing. I don't know who introduced them to the house, but I do believe they were invited in. I never thought for 1 minute that they were living there. They were visiting. They say the three men were strangers, but I don't believe that. I think Raelene and Yvonne met those boys at Hastings Street. Their car, I know it was a white panel van. I've never believed they were Queensland number plates. I've always believed they were New South Wales plates. Always. I can see it in my head, the NSW. Well, I knew they'd gone because they just disappeared. All of a sudden, they weren't there anymore. It all seemed to happen at the same time, relatively quickly. The girls disappeared, they did.
Hey, I found something interesting about those aerial photos of Hastings Street. At 13, you can see the shed I saw at that bikies party in 74.
But what's with those two lighter sand patches?
Someone's dug something.
You might want to take a look.
'Cause from what I see, no one's built on those two spots in 50 years.
I strongly believe that Hastings Street was a pivotal part of the disappearance of Raelene and Yvonne. And I think it requires further investigation. The girls were seen to have called in here in the afternoon. The scruffy strangers were known to have been here, and there was a bikie party that was at this address as well in 1974. Who knows what secrets are held at this address?
So this is a map from approximately 10th of April 1974, roughly 3 days after the girls had gone missing. So of particular interest to us is these kind of lighter, cleared kind of areas here where it looks like there's been either some movement or disturbances in the ground compared to sort of your natural vegetation in and around on lot 13 there. And they're the sort of areas that we're going to closely look at with the ground penetrating radar today.
So Ewan, how did you go?
There is definitely like a clear disturbance that's unnatural to the ground and the normal soil conditions here in the car park. This very bright, enlarged, reflective area here. So it's approximately 2 metres in diameter and resonates from about 500 mil in depth down to about 1.8. So that's something that we'll have a bit of a closer look at back at our office.
So back in 74, I'm sitting in the White Sands at the session and I look across and I see Raelene and Yvonne sitting with a group of men. They were really out of place and not like the surfy crowd that used to be there. They were a little bit older, bogany, rougher looking. They didn't look like nice men to me. For 15 years, I could remember their faces really well, and then after that, those memories just faded. But for 15 years, those guys' faces stuck in my mind. Raelene described to me them as dags, and that Yvonne seemed to be getting on with them well, and that they had offered them a lift. I just assumed it was a lift home. There was no history to these people in her conversation. Raelene never said where she met the guys from. I assumed they'd met them just coincidentally that day.
Witnesses have said Raelene talked about meeting a possible Gary or Gazza or even John. Did you hear any names at all?
No, I didn't hear any names.
Tell me about what you saw when you left the exit that day.
I came out and I saw the girls standing around a car with the guys I'd been talking with inside, kind of making motions to get into the car. I kept walking, turned back around, and I also noticed one of the girls had got into the back of the car in the middle of the seat. I don't know which one because they both had dark hair.
Did you see the number plates on the vehicle?
Yeah, they stood out because they were yellow New South Wales number plates. Didn't see many of those back in that time.
What type of car did you see that day?
It was a light green E.H. Holden station wagon with a white roof. That has stuck with me for 50 years. That car, and the girls being around it, me turning around, seeing the number plate and seeing one of the girls in the back seat.
So did the police ever interview you?
They did. About 2 years later, I was living in Nannup, working in the mill there. They just happened to rock up. I didn't know they were coming, and they just started questioning me about that day. The thing I remember the most was looking through a big file of what they call them mug shots, and I looked through the photographs to see if I could identify anyone from that day at the White Sands, but none of them were in that file. There was no one I could see that looked similar. Or who were those people?
Did you mention the car that day?
Yes, I mentioned the green E.H. Holden station wagon with a white roof with New South Wales number plates. It was the car, the green with the yellow number plate, just sort of stood out to me because I guess I've always been pretty sensitive to colour. I'm a painter. I've got an associate diploma and a degree in visual arts, and colour's my thing.
We gave your details to the Perth police, and have they spoken to you recently?
Yes.
Did they mention anything that could have been missing from your statement?
The E.H. Holden station wagon with New South Wales number plates.
Did the police give any indication as to why the E.H. Holden station wagon was not in the original file?
You know, false memories, although that hasn't been a false memory. I've had that memory from day one. They said things get lost, misplaced over time. 50 years is a long time, and that's possibly what's happened. To me, I had always assumed from that interview in 76, in the interview in 2016, and now I made sure in this last interview, in a signed statement, that it is there in black and white.
So this is the overview area for both scan sections at 13 Hastings Street and 230 West Coast Highway in Scarborough, outlining where we've conducted the GPR scanning. So in relation to the scan files in Area 2, but nothing of particular interest to disturbed ground or a grave site of that sort of nature. In relation to scan Area 1, so the initial anomaly we found in our on-site investigation, so it's very similar in previous data sets we've looked at in regards to grave sites. You can see the similarities of some sort of disturbances in the ground.
Could it be a possible burial site?
Could very well be, but in relation you couldn't say 100%. It also is very similar to soak wells in car parks, construction sites. The only way to know that would be to actually physically dig it up.
These were lovely young girls, innocent, who had their whole life ahead of them, and someone stole that from them. They deserve better than what they actually got, yes.
It was justice more important, or finding out who is responsible, or just bringing Yvonne home?
I just want her remains so that we can finally give them the respect that they deserve and put them to rest.
Mum Eaton organised a place for Raelene to go should they find her. She wanted to put Raelene to rest with her. And the belief that somewhere someone knows what happened, I think she always hoped that the publicity that came would unearth something that would lead her to Raelene. If anyone knows anything, speak up. Do it anonymously. Do it however makes you comfortable. But if we can find the girls, that's really what we want.
Please give somebody some news about what happened that night.
There is a $2 million reward for anyone with information that leads to a conviction for the cousin's death. If you know anything about the case, you can contact Crime Stoppers on 1800 333 000. That's all we have time for this evening. I'm Michael Usher. Thanks for your company. Good night.